5 money habits nobody taught you in school, but should have. Right, quick question for you. Can you name 3 kings of England from memory? Probably yes. Can you explain what compound interest actually does to your money over 30 years? Be honest. That right there is the entire problem with how we're taught. I spent years in school memorizing the periodic table and dates of battles that happened 500 years ago, and not one single teacher ever sat me down and said, "Here's how a credit card actually works," or "Here's why the car you're about to lease is quietly wrecking your future." And look, I get why. Schools aren't really built to make you wealthy. They're built to make you employable. Those are 2 very different things. So today I want to fix that gap myself and give you 5 money habits that genuinely should have been compulsory lessons, right up there next to maths and English. The problem, nobody ever warned us that money has rules. Here's the thing about money. It behaves exactly the same way for everyone, rich or poor, whether you understand the rules or not. It's like being handed a car with no lessons and just being told, "Good luck, don't crash it." Most people spend their 20s figuring out the rules the hard way, through debt, through bad decisions, through watching their bank account do things they didn't expect. I remember getting my first proper paycheck when I was working odd jobs around the flying club, feeling like I'd basically won the lottery. I had no idea what to do with it other than spend it. Nobody had ever explained to me that money you don't see is money you don't spend, or that the first pound you save matters more than the 1,000th pound you earn. I had to learn all of this from a bloke called Dave sat in a car park because school certainly never covered it. So let's go through the 5 habits that would have saved me, and probably you, a lot of pain. Habit 1. Pay yourself first, not last. This is the one that should be taught before anything else, and honestly, it's embarrassingly simple once you hear it. Most people get paid, pay their bills, spend on whatever they fancy, and then if there's anything left over, maybe they save it. The problem is there's never anything left over. There never will be. Your spending will always expand to match whatever's sitting in your account. The fix is to flip the order completely. The moment your paycheck lands, a portion goes straight into savings or investments before you even look at it, and you live off what's left. I set up an automatic transfer years ago that moves money out the second I get paid, and honestly, I don't even notice it's gone anymore. Out of sight really is out of mind. If you wait until the end of the month to save what's left, you'll be saving nothing, guaranteed. Habit 2. Understand that debt has 2 faces. Nobody ever explains this properly. School treats debt like it's just bad, full stop. But that's not true, and it's actually dangerous to think that way, because it means you can't tell the difference between debt that builds you up and debt that quietly destroys you. Here's the actual rule. If you borrow money to buy something that puts more money back in your pocket over time, like a course that gets you a better job or equipment for a business, that's productive debt. But if you borrow money for something that just sits there losing value while you pay interest on it, like a new phone on finance or a holiday on a credit card, that's the kind of debt that quietly eats your future. I learned this one the expensive way. When my model plane business started picking up, I financed a proper photography setup on credit, thinking it would pay for itself instantly. It did eventually pay for itself, but it took nearly 8 months longer than I expected, and those 8 months of interest payments taught me more about reading the fine print than any lesson ever could. Habit 3. Track every pound like it's evidence. Here's an honest question. Do you actually know where your money went last month? Not roughly. Actually know. Most people can't answer that, and it's not because they're bad with money. It's because nobody ever taught them that tracking spending isn't about restriction. It's about awareness. Look, I used to think budgeting was for people who couldn't afford things. Total nonsense. The wealthiest people I know track their spending obsessively, not because they're broke, but because visibility is power. You cannot fix a leak you can't see. There's an app or a spreadsheet for this now, doesn't matter which, the point is simple. Once you actually see $280 a month disappearing into takeaways and subscriptions you forgot you had, you can't unsee it. That awareness alone does more to change behavior than any amount of willpower ever will. Habit 4. Know the difference between an asset and a liability. This one genuinely should be a mandatory GCSE topic. Most people think buying nice things makes them financially successful. A car, a watch, a bigger telly. But here's the actual definition that changed how I see money completely. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's it. That's the whole rule. Your car isn't an asset unless you're using it to earn money, like for deliveries or client visits. It's a liability. It loses value the second you drive it off the lot, and it costs you money every single month in fuel, insurance, and repairs. Meanwhile, something boring like shares in an index fund is quietly putting money in your pocket while you sleep. The wealthy aren't wealthy because they avoid nice things entirely. They're wealthy because they build a pile of assets first and let those assets pay for the nice things rather than paying for nice things directly out of their income and never building anything underneath it. Habit 5. Learn that time is the real currency, not money. This is the one that took me the longest to properly understand, and it's the one I wish someone had drilled into me at 16 instead of 26. Every single pound you invest today is worth dramatically more than the same pound invested in 10 years purely because of time. Not because you're smarter later, not because markets change, purely because of how many years that money has to grow. Let me give you the maths, because this one genuinely shocked me the first time I worked it out properly. If you invest $150 a month starting at age 20 and just leave it alone until you're 60, at a reasonable long-term average return, you'd end up with somewhere around $400,000. Now, if you wait until you're 30 to start and you actually invest double, $300 a month for those same remaining years, you'd end up with roughly $330,000. You invested more money and worked harder for it, and you still end up behind, purely because you lost that first decade. That's not a motivational quote, that's just how compounding works, and it genuinely doesn't care how ready you feel to start. A real example. Let me tie this together with two people I actually know from around the same time. One lad, we'll just call him Tom, started earning decent money around 22, doing freelance video editing. He immediately upgraded his lifestyle, new car, nicer flat, eating out most nights. Fair play, he was enjoying his 20s. Another guy I knew, Josh, was earning noticeably less doing similar work, but he'd picked up habits 1 and 4 early, paying himself first and only buying things that either held value or made him money. By the time they were both around 30, Tom was still living paycheck to paycheck despite earning more than ever, constantly stressed about upcoming bills. Josh, on the other hand, had built up a stock portfolio worth close to $45,000 purely from consistent, boring, unglamorous habits nobody ever taught either of them in school. Same starting point, wildly different outcomes, and the entire difference came down to 5 habits that took maybe an hour total to actually learn. Wrapping this up. So here's what I want you to genuinely take from this. None of these 5 habits are complicated. Pay yourself first, understand which debt builds you and which debt buries you, track every pound, know your assets from your liabilities, and start today rather than waiting until you feel ready, because time is the one thing you can never buy back. The frustrating truth is none of this is hard, it's just never taught. So now that you know it, there's really no excuse left. If you want to see exactly how to put your first pound to work and actually start investing properly, I'll leave that video right up there. But don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth. Okay, I'll see you over there.